One thing we did was we specialize in creating visualizations and renderings for projects. We were actually the innovators around touchscreen experiences for sales offices. Understands the technology side of things and the pre-construction, where I'm able to kind of bring both worlds together. That's kind of where my headspace of the industry.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of More Than a Sale. And today I have one such individual. He's the CEO and founder of Blackline, the revolutionary tech company that takes the journey of a builder, a salesperson, marketing team, sales company, and helps facilitate the transactions on the back end for a pre-construction sale. Tim Ng. Tim, welcome to More Than a Sale.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks for having me. Blackline started 5 years ago, really trying to figure out machine learning, AI tools, make better, more informed decisions, educated decisions.
So even then, and I'll speak from my experiences, 10 years ago, manually you have to fill out a worksheet. There was no digital submission at that point in time.
Even just getting the condo doc, be over 100 pages, it would be like you get like a thick stack of binder, or they started like putting into the USB key.
So how did Blackline get formed? Because the technology is extremely powerful.
What we really did was create a digital scale model. Go in there, log in, and access all the information they need. You can click on that exact unit, see exactly where it is on the floor plate, pretty much the entire configuration. A realtor experience. Let's do it. Let's change the industry. Let's digitize it.
Tim, welcome to More Than a Sale.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
I'm really excited about this episode because we've all been using Blackline and we've heard of Blackline, and anybody in the industry that's selling pre-construction or is in real estate sales, they've been utilizing Blackline. First off, what is Blackline? What does Blackline do? What are the problems that Blackline solves? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. Blackline in its essence is basically a sales engine to allow developers and project marketing teams to really expedite and create efficiencies in their sales process. So we're really focused on new developments. How we started.
Yeah, talk about that. How did you start?
So how we started was just some background about myself. So I do come from a second generation real estate family.
Oh, no way.
So my father was one of the OG, I would call it, platinum brokers before it was even a thing in the early 80s and 90s.
Incredible.
So he owned a couple brokerages, had about 1,500 agents.
Wow.
At its height of it.
Any notable names? What was the company called?
So he had a company that he ended up selling, but in the early 80s and the 90s, it was called Filmax Realty.
Okay.
And then after he ended up joining Land Power Real Estate, which is still a pretty large brokerage.
Incredible. I've heard of Land Power. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't born in the 80s, so I wouldn't know about the other one. But it's always good to take a walk back in history because pre-construction then was like totally different.
Yeah.
So anyways, carry on.
Yeah. So, in the 80s and 90s, there wasn't much like really brokers or realtors really focusing on pre-construction. There wasn't many like new condos being built.
Yeah.
So he was really one of the first guys, or one of the only brokers out there that was really focused on selling pre-construction. So typically, a developer would have a condo building. He would actually be allocated, I'd say, like 2/3 of the building.
Wow.
So he would, sell locally. He would be going overseas across Asia, from Hong Kong, Malaysia, Singapore, and all these different cities.
Yeah.
And doing trade shows, road shows, and stuff like that, selling pre-construction. And then he would come back to Toronto and have all these different contracts written for the entire building, essentially.
Wow. So you saw this firsthand growing up of your father facilitating pre-construction sales.
Exactly. So
and how old were you when all of this was going on?
I was like 5 years old, starting from when I was 5.
Yeah.
5, 6 years old.
Yeah.
And then my mom worked for a predominant developer. She worked at Tridel. So I kind of got that perspective from the developer side as well.
So you pretty much grew up in the industry. You've seen the ins, the outs. You've not only had a father he's a terrific salesperson and a platinum broker, and a mother who works in the development team. You got the best of both worlds.
Pretty much, right? Like I kind of saw like literally like from end to end where everything and where all the pain points are.
Yeah.
Where all the, I guess, like lack of innovation in the industry.
So what is that? Let's talk a little bit about this. So what was the old way of doing real estate sales for those people that don't know and the audience that's listening to this or watching this? What was the original way of facilitating a sales transaction to what it transformed into, and then what happened when Blackline came into play, or how you came up with the idea of Blackline?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny because like if you look at the entire every execution from the launch events, from the architecture, the interior design, or the floor plans, everything we do in Toronto or the GTA, everything is over the years has been very elevated. I call like Toronto almost like the Silicon Valley of real estate. And then whenever there's a new development launch, it's basically like an IPO that gets sent out there to the public.
Right.
So everything was very elevated over the years. Like every touch point was very elevated. But one part that I found that was a big, I guess, pain point or a gap would be if you think about like the realtor experience, like developers and sales teams sending out information to brokers and realtors to basically learn about the project, educate themselves about the project, do their homework, or educate their clients or purchasers or buyers around the project. So we kind of started with that. We looked at that sales process in terms of like what realtors and brokers were actually getting from a broker portal or from a realtor portal.
So even then, and I'll speak from my experiences as well, I've been selling pre-construction for over 10 plus years now. So 10 years ago, when you would get allocated a unit, you would be emailed the allocation in a Excel format or table format or a PDF format, and that would be your allocation. And there was, and either depending on your sales or volume, you'd be given 5 units, you'd be given 10 units, 15 units, and 20 units. And it was a whole game of, oh my God, this person got this much or that person got that much. What's going on? And you would now bombard the sales company and like, give me units because you have buyers for it. Then when you needed to, now when you got your allocation, that allocation has to be spoken for. So let's say if it's a 1-bedroom unit on the 15th floor, now manually you have to fill out a worksheet. There was no digital submission at that point in time. So let's say if you were my buyer, Tim, I'd sit down with you, I'd manually fill out a worksheet, I'd get your ID, now I'd scan that worksheet, scan the ID, and I would email it to the email attached for that particular project. And then what they would do is they would call you in for a signing appointment. There was no e-copies being sent out or anything of that sort. There would be physical copies that would be rendered. So there was a point where they wouldn't even give you scanned copies. You have your agreement. If you lose it, you got to pay extra to get it back from the lawyer. And then when comes your signing appointment, sometimes they don't give you a time or date. Just show up on this day. We'll fill you in as it's happening, as it's going. That's the sales process. So now when you're signing the documents, you're not signing one agreement of purchase and sale. You're signing 3, 4. And I know that there was one point where they did 5. I didn't experience the 5, but I heard about it. I was in the 4 part where the builder would keep a copy, the marketing company would keep a copy, and then the buyer would keep a copy, and then the agent would get a copy. So you get 4 copies that were given. And then some builders were so old school that you're not just initialing or signing on one paper, you're signing on the back as well. The front and back of just to have originality.
Exactly.
Man, your hand would be like tired from signing, and even the agent, you're like 2 hours waited just getting all the paperwork and documentation signed up. It was nuts.
Even just getting the condo docs, right? The condo docs would be over 100 pages. It would be like you'd get like a thick stack of basically like a binder. Or they started like putting into the USB key, which is still.
Oh yeah, the USB key. I totally forgot about that one. So, they put the USB key right in the pamphlet. So now circling back to you, did you experience that as well, where you saw this take firsthand of the signing of the documents, and you're like, man, this takes forever, and you're there with your father on these projects or these sales things that are taking forth. Did your parents ever have a conversation with you like, okay, son, it's time for you to get into the real estate industry? Were you pressurized to kind of jump into the industry as well? Or was it something that you had an option of deciding?
Yeah, no, for sure. Like I always kind of had that pressure of becoming a broker or, like inheriting like my father's book of clients, running my own brokerage. It was always something like at the back of my head as an option. But I was always really into technology and, really did that as a hobby in high school and in university as well, and really enjoyed like the creativity, the creative process of building software and things like that, and decided to really merge essentially new developments or pre-construction with technology.
So where did you go to school?
I went to school at Ryerson.
Okay.
Actually studied commerce and with a marketing degree, so it's completely not totally related, but definitely helped me with starting my own company, being an entrepreneur.
So what was that? So I want to circle into that exact moment when Blackline started to be formed. Sometimes we start doing things and we're like, oh my God, I have a working product on hand, and I could take this much more to what it is now based on what I'm seeing now in the market. So at what point in time did you start working on Blackline, or how did Blackline get formed? How did you come up with the name? How do you have all the things that Blackline has now? Because the technology is extremely powerful, but I know for a fact it was not the case when it first started, obviously.
Yeah, of course,
So let's start from there. Talk to me from there.
Yeah, so I started our parent company 15 years ago. Our parent company was ADHOC Studio.
Got it.
So that was literally me at 22, fresh out of university. I've always knew that I wanted to start my own company, be an entrepreneur, literally at the age of 5. So I started this company, ADHOC Studio, our parent company, and primarily we only focused on 2 things. So one thing we did was we specialize in creating visualizations and renderings for projects. We're one of the top firms creating renderings for interiors and exteriors for projects. And then the second part of our business, we were actually the innovators and the pioneers around building interactive software and touchscreen experiences for sales offices.
Okay, wow.
So in 2008, if you wanted to show floor plans, renderings, show like a neighborhood amenity map in a sales office, typically a developer would be printing like large format displays and then hanging up all these floor plans and renderings on a wall in the sales office. So literally I had a vision of taking all of that print material, digitizing it, and creating, basically building an interactive touchscreen and having an interactive screen mount on the wall where you can actually consolidate all that content on a screen. And that was actually the same time around when the iPhone came out. And the iPhone came out, I think, in 2007. Started gaining popularity 2007, 2008. So people were starting to really realize that a touch functionality, being able to interact with a screen with the point of with your hand, was something that was tactile, was very immersive. So that was actually like the right timing for us to really do that. For the last 15 years, we had a very large market share. We were in consistently over 90, let's say, sales offices, presentation centers alone. So Blackline, we started 5 years ago. And it's essentially like all the information that we've captured working closely with developers and sales and marketing teams for the last 15 years, and kind of putting all our experience into essentially one box and creating this platform. And then one thing that I'd like to share that really nobody really knows about, or we don't really share it enough, like you said, Ron, is when we started to really think about an architect Blackline, what we actually did before we even started to code the platform and program the platform, was we actually gathered 20 of the largest real estate developers and salespeople across Canada, from Toronto all the way to Vancouver, and we completed focus groups with them. So we met with them on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, and to really understand really where all their pain points are with the sales and marketing process. And we finished these focus groups in a year and a half, literally consolidated this information, and then we started to really build our platform. So we launched about 4 years ago, and we've, in the last 4 years, we've powered over 80,000 units in the last 4 years, averaged about 20,000 units on our platform across Canada.
Wow.
On Blackline.
How much volume would you say, dollar volume of project facilitation that has taken place from your system?
Over $1 billion, I would say.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So now let me ask you this: what are the major functionalities of Blackline that you feel, or that caters to the buyer experience, to the agent experience? Because right now I think that majority of it focuses on the sales and the agent.
Yeah.
What are you working on to showcase the buyer experience? Because it's really the buyer that decides which floor plan, with the guidance of the realtor or the marketing material available, where they want to be and where they want to be positioned. Yeah. And the sales process is such a process that's so controlled in pre-construction, because the biggest question is what is available, what is held back, what is being released, how come I can't get this floor versus that floor, how come I can't get that unit over that unit, and different on the viewpoint. So for the longest time, this was more of you're selling, but the buyer is buying blindly in a way where they're not able to know exactly where they're positioned in a particular building. But now when you see a system like yours where you have a full rendering, digital rendering of the building, you can with your cursor, you can move it around, you can click on each unit, you can see the viewpoint if it's available, and sometimes it's restricted where you're not able to see, I guess maybe because there's no view there, from a sales level. So what are the major features in the Blackline system that agents and buyers are seeing on the front end, and then what does the back end look like from a developer standpoint?
Yeah, like we really, early days when we were building it, we really broke down, really focused on the brokers and the realtors really being the advisors throughout the entire sales process, right? So we really buckled down and honing and getting in all the details of, what exactly is important, when a project launches, what's important in terms of the content and the marketing information that needs to be distributed to the broker or the realtor. So on the front end side of things, traditionally, before Blackline existed, in order to get marketing and sales content or assets, it would be through some type of makeshift broker portal website, or uploading a bunch of files into a Dropbox link, where literally you would have to the broker would have to go in the Dropbox link and download all these PDFs and then open up them, share them and combine them and compare them and stuff like that. And what we really did was create elevated interactive portal for realtors. So it's a really elevated realtor portal. And they're able to literally go in there, log in, and access all the information they need to really learn about the project, get a snapshot of, where all the points of interest are, where all the neighborhood amenities are, the drive times, the transit times from the new development to a point of interest, let's say. Compare floor plans, understand where the elevator shafts are, where the staircases are through an interactive floor plate or a key plan, spin around a digital scale model. So typically, in order to really experience the building, you would have to physically go to the sales office and be in front of the physical scale model. So now you can do that completely through our portal, through the digital scale model. You can look at all the interactive views. So you can click on that exact unit, see exactly where it is on the floor plate, see where that view is, what exposures, whether it's south-facing, whether it's north-facing. Pretty much the entire configuration can be seen online, essentially. And then also, it's an easy way for you guys to download assets. A big part of, similar to your team, Ron, and your brokerage is being able to take the assets, being able to easily download them and create your own branded content that you can share with your clients and your purchasers as well. So we pretty much created a better experience with that as well.
Are you the only company that's doing stuff like this?
I would say we were the first mover for sure. When we first came out 4 years ago, there was nobody created, and I do really think that we've essentially created our own category. When a developer and a project marketing team, they're starting to think of launching a project and planning out a project, let's say 8 to 12 months before a project launches.
Right.
Now, one of the questions that they're asking in the boardrooms when they're planning out a project is what sales platform are we using? They're asking the sales team, the developers are asking the sales team, what's the sales platform we're going to be using for our project when we launch? That wasn't a question 4 years ago. So essentially what Blackline has created is its own category. And there's been, some newer players that are trying to tap into the industry, but I don't think there's been a direct competitor to us that pretty much handles the entire life cycle.
So that's where your proprietary value of Blackline comes into play, where you handle the entire life cycle from a project being launched to its completion mode. What other things are you guys working on right now in Blackline that is in development or is about to come out that also aims or adds to the life cycle or simplifies processes?
Yeah, we're actually in the process of like all the intel and the experiences we've really gathered in the last 4 years. You know, we've done over 80,000 units on our platform.
Yeah.
You're definitely going to be like the first to hear this on this podcast.
Yeah.
We're actually rebuilding like Blackline from the ground up. We're actually building a V2 version.
Okay.
So there's a lot of things that, you know, we've learned, and some of the features that we're really focused on right now is launching like a CRM portion, really being able to also handle like closings, assignments, a lot of the after sales processes for developers as well. And then at the core of it, really trying to figure out like machine learning, AI tools to really allow developers to be able to make better, more informed decisions, educated decisions on how to optimize their revenues, how to essentially make more money on individual units, on individual stacks, or the entire building revenue, just because of, you know, all the cost escalations of construction cost and all the different cost escalations across the industry, I would say.
How large is your team right now?
Team of 35 right now.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so,
local and overseas?
Just local.
All local.
All Toronto based. Yeah.
Wow. So all the coders, everyone that's working on this is all in-house.
Yeah, we run a very tight ship overall.
Yeah, incredible. And when you sit down together with the team, how do you guys, what's your creative process look like in terms of this is what we need? Are you the one sort of driving that vision forward? Is it someone else that's saying, no, this is what is integral, this is what needs to be added, this is where things need to, so who's driving that ship forward?
Yeah, I'd say there's no real like secret sauce, honestly, but I think one thing that, you know, culturally that like we really do differently compared to a lot of like our competitors or, you know, people that have been trying to get into this game is we really essentially like listen to guys like yourself that are in the front line, like your team, the different realtors and brokers that are, you know, really involved and with the purchase and involved with the buyers. So we're always engaging with brokers and realtors. We're always engaging, constantly having conversations and meetings, like different focus groups as well with developers and sales teams, project marketing teams. That's always a constant conversation, and really like understanding things from a monthly basis to a quarterly basis, because the market's everly changing. Like we understand that we need to also be nimble in terms of like the decisions we make in terms of what we're building, what features we're building as well, and what we're launching. Yeah.
Now, you made everything sound so smooth. You had this idea, it went exactly accordingly to plan. You launched a company and you just have large market share and your proprietary value. I'm sure it wasn't a smooth ride for you.
It wasn't, you know, like when we first started, I remember like our first year, I had all the relationships already, right? Because we were already like doing a lot of stuff with developers and sales teams, but we literally showed every single developer, every single sales team, our platform, like when we first launched, and literally just showing them like, hey, like you could take a worksheet and just digitize that. It doesn't have to be a PDF form where a broker downloads the PDF and fills out the PDF and then emails it out. Like there's a better way of primarily just doing that. And I'd say we showed maybe like 50 developers and salespeople, and all of them rejected it. Like they were like, no, like, you know, brokers and realtors are really comfortable with, you know, how they submit the worksheets. This is the process that has been, you know, that's been the process for over 30 years. Unless someone really like big really adopts it, like a big developer adopts it, then maybe we'll take a look at it again. But yeah, we had every single door like shut on us for the first year. And yeah, we, you know, that was the shit we had to go through. Yeah. And
then how'd you overcome that? Who was that first big developer that you got that really took Blackline on as like, this is revolutionary?
Yeah, like the first person, the influencer and the early adopter was Riz Danji. Riz Danji at that time. Yeah. He's
an incredible human being. Shout out Riz. Yeah. That guy's, every time I sit with him, every time I listen to him, his ideas, the way he thinks, he's always ahead of his time.
Yeah, like I remember like he didn't have a lot of time to meet with me.
Yeah.
He was still in the early stages of launching his sales firm, Rad Marketing.
Yeah.
He was transitioning out from working for Canderel, which is a developer, to Rad Marketing. So it was like good timing as well, because we were starting off. He was also like starting off Rad Marketing as well. So you really wanted to really be the innovator and really be backed by technology from the early days when he started as well. And yeah, I had 10 minutes to present to him. He was in a rush. He had to go to another meeting. So I kind of had to give like that elevator pitch.
Yeah.
And I honestly just showed him like, hey, this is a better process of submitting a worksheet and allocating a unit to a broker. He had a project coming out. I think it was like coming out in the next 6 months. And he's like, Tim, let's do it. Like, let's, change the industry. Let's digitize it.
Wow.
So we launched that project 2019 with him. And right when people saw there was a different way of doing things, like a more digital, seamless way, then people started to call us, like all the developers, the salespeople started to call us after that.
Yeah. So then that's when your phone started ringing.
Yeah.
Okay. But at the same time, and I know this as well, and I've told you personally too, some of the issues that I encountered while utilizing Blackline and various bugs and and of course it's a lot more streamlined process now. We can always joke about in the past.
Yeah.
Like if we ever sit down and I tell you all my, I just have napkins with you when I tell you my sorrow story of Remax Millennium and its early days and the chaos that was ensuing in my own life altogether. And we all have that as entrepreneurs. We all have that when we're so passionate about what we're building, because
100%.
we see it clearly. We just got to make other people see it the way we want them to see it.
Yeah.
And so from there on, what are some of the challenges and issues that you encountered while running Blackline? And I want you to share with me and tell me a little bit of insight. You're like, Ron, I thought this company was over at this point in time. And have you ever had a moment like that?
Yeah, no, it was like one of our early clients was, you would know her as well as Sharon Florian from Fernbrook Citizen.
Yeah.
And, I'd say she's one of the sharpest, most experienced sales and marketing people in the industry. And we were launching this project with her, and on the back end side of things, in terms of what exactly like developers need in terms of downloading all the data from the worksheets, allocating specific things on sending out a contract, like the APS to brokers. Early days, like when we were launching our first project, like there was like so many different pain points, gaps and holes that, we didn't really figure out. Like it was at a point where like, we're pretty far off from.
Yeah, we bit off more than we could chew. Yeah.
Yeah, like this thing is, we thought we had all the questions answered, and until we started working with someone like Sharon, who has a ton of experience selling real estate, we're like, there's a lot of gaps in our platform.
So what did you do then? How'd you handle that?
I'd say this, like something I learned in an early age was people never really remember the problem. They always remember like the solution, like what you were able to really find the solution or be solution oriented for your clients essentially. So we always were willing to listen, really get into the nitty gritty of where the problems were. We never walked in with kind of this mentality that we're not going to listen to anybody or this really cocky mentality. Kept everything very down to earth and really just listened to our customers. Any type of feedback that we got in terms of pain points or holes in our software, we just got to work. Like we nailed down on those pain points. And we just made sure that the next project that we launched for any developer, we basically would learn from these experiences and just improve on these features or these gaps in our platform. So for every project that we launched, every client that we worked with, really culturally just prided ourselves on getting better for every single project that we did. So now, over 80,000 units, we've, cut our teeth through a lot of things. And
as a leader, Tim, how have you changed as a person from when you first began the company to where you are now? And I know my own journey when I first started Remax Millennium to where my headspace is at now, to the way I operate, to the way I think versus when I first originally started. How does that look like for you as a leader, as a CEO, as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, there's definitely been, like you said, like there's you're always constantly trying to improve, trying to learn. Every day, every week, you can get better as a leader. I would say, like, really the critical decision making, like being able to, be 10 steps ahead of everyone on your team, being able to kind of like see the entire roadmap of everything. And you as an individual, like really have clarity in your headspace in terms of what that roadmap looks like, in terms of the vision, like what are the decisions and what are the little decisions on a daily basis, on a weekly basis that you need to make to essentially hit those goals and those targets that you kind of set out for your team and for you personally as well. And also like being involved with the day-to-day as well. Like I think it's usually you're at the top of the organization. You tend to, I find, like you tend to get kind of lost with the bigger picture stuff as well. So being able to like really find the balance of bigger picture items, but also like the day-to-day items, to be there for your team. Like if your team needs you, I have an open door policy. They can call me, they can message me, they can hit me up anytime, any time of the day. I'm always listening, always waiting to hear their feedback and being in the trenches of all the projects. Like if a client, a developer or a sales team like calls me, or Ron, even if you call me, if you're having an issue with our platform, you call me about a project, I know exactly what's going on. I'm actually one step ahead. I see exactly, where the logs or where the issues are with our platform beforehand. So even though I'm always really focused on the high level stuff, I'm also balancing the day-to-day stuff as well.
Now, let me ask you this. How does that process look like for you on a day-to-day? And what I mean by this is that when you have so many projects that are running and you're facilitating a lot of your clients, how are you managing your time? How are you managing your family life? How are you managing yourself? How are you managing your team? How are you motivating your team? How are you staying motivated yourself? What does that process look like? Because you have to do it all at once, at the same time, every single day. That's what it is of being a CEO. Yeah. Okay, there's no bad days for a CEO to everyone else. Yeah. Bad days they're having on the back end, but nobody else can know about the bad days. They don't know the chaos that's ensuing. They don't know the bills that has to be paid. They don't know that this issue is happening or that problem is taking place, but you're keeping a calm, cool, tranquil atmosphere because everything is just perfect in front of the eyes. And so if something is not going right, do you voice it to your team and you say, guys, what the heck is this? Like, what's going on? Why are we not? How are you as a leader? What would you say your leadership style is like?
Yeah, kind of like what I just said. It's having an open door policy. Like first thing is like listening. Like whether it's, my family with my wife and my daughters, like, listening, what they want, what their needs are, like exactly what that is. Same thing with my team. Across 35 people is like really making sure that there's devoted time to anyone around you, whether it's family or your colleagues or within your network of industry. Is really making sure that you always are able to set aside some time to listen and balancing that. I think that's the biggest thing, that because you can always, as a leader, right, like everyone is always willing to listen to you when you have something to say or a task to assign your team members. The biggest part I would say is really always just taking a step back and listening to the people around you and really taking it seriously, I would say.
Have you ever had a moment in your life where you didn't feel the greatest and you kind of lost motivation, or maybe for a short while you didn't see clarity in terms of what you wanted to do, or had a moment of confusion? Has that ever happened while even leading the company, or like it's not going the way I thought it would go, or I'm not seeing it come this way, and maybe you wanted to scratch it all together? Has there ever been a moment like that personally for you?
Yeah, for sure. Like when I started our parent company, ADHOC Studio, 15 years ago, out of university, my mom was always, my mom's like on the conservative side, typically as an Asian parent. Go get that 9-to-5 job where, you can get that salary, where you can get that, that monthly paycheck or that biweekly paycheck. That money's there to pay off for school and whatnot and stuff like that. But I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur at the age of 5, and at that time, I was still living at home. So I gave myself time frame. I'm like, if I'm going to do this, like fresh out of university, I'm going to give myself 5 years. Like whether I'm going to be able to break into this industry or I'm just going to literally like fail and fall flat on my face.
Yeah.
Because typically in this industry, I'd say in the real estate pre-construction industry, it was always like a country club. It was always old money. There wasn't any like new energy, like younger guys breaking into this industry, especially, you know, when you're in your early 20s. Like when I first started, I don't know if you know like Mimi Ing from Mankey's, who runs like the sales and marketing. So my last name is Ing as well. So whenever I would introduce myself to a developer or a sales and marketing person, they'd be like, "Oh, like, are you like, I see your last name, it's Ing. Are you like related to Mimi?" I would get that all the time. Are you like a cousin or like a sibling?
You don't have
Mimi?
to answer whether you said yes or no.
Yeah. But you know the answer to that. And they would always think, you know, at 22, I was like related to somebody, or did you work for somewhere else, like to start this company?
Yeah.
So the first 3 years, like I didn't have any connections, nobody, right? 2008 was a really shitty market during that market financial like downturn. But it was honestly like a blessing in disguise for me, because what I did for the first 3 years was I was doing a lot of cold calling. I would literally just have a database of all the people, like developers and salespeople, that I would just like literally cold call every day. I would have to, like, let's say cold call 100 people a day, like give myself a quota for the first 3 years and try to just get meetings and people to listen to me. But yeah, first 3 years was super challenging. I literally thought that like I can't do this anymore. Like nobody's, you know, giving me the time of day. No one's willing to meet up with me. No one's like setting up meetings with me. I would go home. My mom would be waiting at the front door and be like, first question she would ask before even she said hi, she would be like, did you get a full-time job? Did you hand out your resumes and all that stuff? Every single day would be like that. And
so it seemed like your mom had a more of an influential role in your life.
She did, yeah, for sure.
And what about your father? What would you say? What was he like?
He was always very open. I learned a lot of my like entrepreneurial like mindset and my business savviness like from my father, for sure.
Yeah.
Everything I know about how realtors operate, how like the broker of record would operate on a day-to-day basis, how the industry functions from a sales and marketing point of view. Everything was literally, you know, from my dad, and then my mom also was a big part of that as well, coming in from the developer side as well. So yeah, real estate was always a topic of conversation at the dinner table.
It's in your blood.
Every night.
You grew up on it. You grew up on it. And right now, what would you say is someone who motivates you to be better, and someone that you look up to, or someone that inspires you?
I think sports has like always been a big proponent. I played competitive basketball at a very young age. I was actually playing basketball competitively in my elementary days with Steph Curry back in the day when he lived in Etobicoke.
You played basketball with Steph Curry?
Yeah, I played basketball with Steph Curry.
Wow.
Yeah. So started basketball when I was 6.
I learned something new about you today. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Tell me, you used to get shots over him all the time.
Oh
there.
man, like
this is where the Steph Curry story came into play.
He used
to lose to Tim all the time, and he's like, I'm gonna get my revenge, and he trained extremely so hard that now he's in the NBA. Is that what happened? Is that?
I wish I could say that in front of the camera. He was like 4 years younger than me.
Okay.
He was on the opposing team in our league, and you know, he in one of the games I remember, you know, he's 4 years younger than that age group that was playing competitively.
Yeah.
And in that first game that we were playing against him, he dropped 60 points.
Wow.
Yeah, he dropped 60 points.
Wow.
I think he was like at that time like 7 years old or something like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to answer your question, like sports has been a big part of just everything for me, like competitively.
Yeah.
That drive to always get better. So really my inspirations, like really the GOATs, Michael Jordan, really grew up as a huge Michael Jordan fan, Kobe Bryant fan as well. Pretty much like their work ethic. Now I've been really into golf as well. So like Tiger Woods has been a big, really a big influencer around like, you know, how I formulate like my day-to-day and how I strategize around like everything I think about. So I think sports figures or celebrities, whatever you want to call it, has been a big part of everything I do. Yeah.
Is there a quote that you believe in that resonates with you the most anytime you're leading your day, your life, or your business?
For sure. Like more like an excerpt, not really a quote, but from Muhammad Ali, like impossible is nothing. That's something I always reference back to, like anything I'm doing. like whether it's a certain task or a big feature I'm trying to build. Really impossible is not.
Yeah, no, I really like that one as well. And for me, it's always been age is no barrier to ambition.
Yeah.
And because I got I got in the
course.
industry very young and early
Sure.
as well, and I was the one that when you talk about old money and country club, and I got a chance to witness that, and I was like, what the heck is this platinum stuff? Like I won, and just to get your in somehow at that time,
Yeah.
nowadays like the whole process is kind of shifted. There's
Yeah.
new faces, there's new teams, there's new people, and you have to stay within it. What's next for you, Tim?
It's I think I'm always constantly evaluating different prop tech solutions, right? Like where I'm at today is there's not many individuals in the industry that understands the technology side of things and the pre-construction, sales and marketing side of things. Where I kind of sit in that in between, in that middle, where I'm able to kind of bring both worlds together. So I'm always evaluating like, hey, can I build a new platform to improve on this? Or to solve this problem? Can I build another software, launch another software to help with this? That's kind of where my headspace is, and also like investing in new prop tech solutions as well. Like I get calls every day on newer guys coming into the industry across North America, from Canada and into the U.S. Like getting myself involved as an investor to be on the advisory boards or some type of direction role in terms of like helping a new startup, a tech startup to really kind of kickstart into the industry.
For those that don't know you, they got a chance to hear your story today. They got a chance to learn what Blackline is, if they didn't know already, and the Blackline story. And before we finish off this episode, I'd like to ask an important question to you. Yeah. Who is Tim Ng?
That's the toughest question of the day. I think when people think about Tim Ng or where the legacy I want to like leave behind is really down to earth, really being able to be a collaborator, team player, really literally listening to everyone that's around him. Somebody that whether you're working with me or part of my network is like, I've interacted with Tim. He's really helped me with something, whether it's a skill, an improvement on something, and also just being like a focused individual. Like a big part of, I think, a lot of my successes is really like being able to focus on one or two things. Like I'm not trying to be like a master of all. I'm trying to do everything, because it's very easy to say yes to a lot of things, but really being able to pick one or two specialties or being a really like expert at one or two things. Tim really being a focused individual on honing in on his craft on something.
That's incredible. Tim, thank you for joining us today on More Than a Sale.
Appreciate it, man.
Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned for the next episode. This was definitely a powerful episode. Blackline story, never been heard before. Stay tuned for the next one.